Cool. Should we start the session? Cool. Let's do it.
All right. Good evening, everyone, and a very warm welcome to the British Council and the Fashion Revolution series, Crafting Connections. My name is Roshni Rao, and I lead the arts and culture work for the British Council in South India. A little bit about British Council that you may already know, but the British Council is the UK's international organization for cultural relations and educational opportunities. This is very much echoed in the ambitions for our current multi-year Crafting Futures program in India. Through a grant scheme, Crafting Futures in India brings together Indian and UK partners to collaborate on projects which explore new futures for craft. Crafting Connections is part of the larger Crafting Futures program, conceptualized in partnership with Fashion Revolution India. Through this exciting digital series, we aim to engage with the wider craft sector and enable networking opportunities and marketing linkages between artisans and communities. This series runs until February 2021 and will showcase some insightful conversations and bring to the forefront some unique India and UK collaborations in craft. However, we do understand that in light of the current rapidly ever-evolving COVID-19 situation in India and the UK, that this is a very difficult time for the craft sector and artisans. So through this series, the British Council and Fashion Revolution reaches out across digital frontiers and national boundaries in solidarity with the many inspiring craftspeople in India and beyond, as we firmly believe that culture truly connects us, and at this time of uncertainty, creativity and collaboration binds us together. Today's conversation with the Swami Sivananda Memorial Trust and the Goldsmith University is extremely special and focuses on creating sustainable livelihoods and empowering women through craft. Our speakers represent this fabulous diversity of the India craft sector, and it is with motivated and passionate partners like the Fashion Revolution team, we're able to reach out to a wide network of some of the most creative minds in craft. On that note, I'd like to pass it on to Alia. Alia, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Roshni. Thank you so much, everyone who's joining us. Thank you so much to my panelists. Please just give me a second as I fix my hair. So here we are sort of more than halfway through our Crafting Connections series. And we have a topic today which, is foremost on our minds. We're talking about sustainable livelihoods, and sustainable development is something which is very much part of the global agenda for Fashion Revolution. And we feel in India we have this wonderful opportunity to discuss it within the context of the craft sector. So today's panel is about empowering women through craft as a way of creating sustainable livelihoods. Ultimately, the more sustainable livelihoods we have, the more sustainable our society becomes. We are picking up on a few people whom we know and love very well. We have part of the British Council's Crafting Futures projects. We have the project which SSMI Swami Sivananda Memorial Institute and Goldsmiths University of London, who have come together place to work. We have some of the artisans who are part of the project, who are here with us on the panel. We have Santosh and Jyoti with us. Along with SSMI is being represented by Sunita Bhasin, who is director of SSMI. Sunita is a committed environmentalist, educationalist, community organizer, and a lover of textile and craft. She has studied at Syracuse University, Rajasthan University, Bhopal University. She's also worked at Doordarshan. She obviously knows and understands India very well. And she's also worked with All India Radio, developing low-cost teaching aids for early and primary education. Along with Sunita on the project, we have Sandra Froeving from Goldsmiths. Sandra is a social designer whose work is informed by cultural observation and carried out through direct collaborations with the general public. Her process makes use of community engagement through educational and performative workshops, where she focuses on relinquishing sole authorship of the produced work. I got to say, Sandra, this is something quite wonderful and rare, and it's so lovely to see someone put that up front as their philosophy and ethos. Thank you so much for joining us. We also have with us Pooja Gupta. Pooja is part of Fashion Revolution India and also founder of the fashion label Door of Mai. If you've been following our work, you'd probably know about the project which Pooja does in Alipur Women's Correctional Prison in Kolkata, where Door of Mai has set up a vocational training unit. And Pooja and her mom have gone in and trained women who are basically serving out, prison sentences, and train them in craft skills, creating livelihoods, along with keeping the Door of My philosophy of being very, very sustainable by using upcycling and handcrafting and other techniques that are generally not, they're doing good for the environment, along with creativity. Moderating the panel is Shruti Singh. Shruti is the head of policy and Fashion Revolution India. Shruti is also co-founder of the School of Active Citizenship, which nurtures the next generation of policy leaders and social change makers. So without further ado, I'm going to turn the panel over to Shruti to take us through the two projects, and for us to dig in and understand a little bit more about what are these systems that are being created, and try and figure out, where we can take these, thinking about scaling up this way of dealing with the issue of livelihood, the issue of sustainable development, and in general, looking at the sort of what are the cross learnings from these two different projects, and what can we do in the future. Thank you so much, Ruti. Please start. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Alia. And I'm really looking forward to the discussion because it's something that is really close to our hearts and we believe is something that will really bring sustainable change in the industry. So Sandra and Sunita, I would like to start with your project. And if you could take us through the program that you have designed, what is the scope of the project? What will the workshop cover? Who are the beneficiaries? And why have you chosen to empower women through craft? Why do you think that is the key answer to bringing sustainable livelihoods?
Sunita?
Sandra, would you like to take it first?
Yeah, shall I?
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe I talk a little bit first about like how we met and then what the project encompasses and the structure that we build up and will hopefully this year run through. So I work at Goldsmiths University in London, and through the open call I met with Sunita and the team of SSMI in Delhi online, and then we started like looking at what we both, or like what both institutions have to offer, what like the individuals, like what me and the women and Sunita and the team at SSMI can do together. And very early on, we discovered that we work really well together, even though we wrote the application from different continents and different time zones. And that's something I think that our team does really well, that we have a good communication and that we like talk about the same values and things that we care about. So we started to write this application where we put the women in the focus, where it wasn't about us designing something, but where it is about the women taking ownership of the things that they make with their cultural heritage. So Sunita explained to me that most of the women at SSMI, they migrate from the north of India, and that there is a very rich cultural heritage in block printing in combination with crochet and embroidery. So we were looking at how can we incorporate this traditional heritage with all the sustainability material aspects into the production of SSMI. So on the one hand, it's about understanding the way women make and the way women craft, the way women understand their environment through the materials they collect, through the dyes they make, through the patterns they create, through the combination of all those different aspects into the products, and those products, they can be like something that SSMI is producing now, but like mostly in smaller communities. What I learned from previous projects is that those products or the things that come into existence have like a much bigger value to the community, like as a social and cultural value, where those objects are used in like family rituals and religious rituals and like all sorts of social fabric that they are interwoven. And it's quite a nice narrative to talk about the social fabric and the fabric that is made through the landscape, and then the women, how they connect the landscape they live with and live into the production. And this is something that we wanted to deliver within the project and bring back to New Delhi, so that the women can actually empower the production and enrich the production at SMI. So we started looking at how can we do this, and we are sort of restrained by my teaching schedule. So we have 2 windows within the project, and the first window was April, where I was supposed to travel last year. Can you all still hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can. Please go on.
Okay. So like last year I was supposed to travel in April, and this year I was supposed to travel in April for research. And the first part of this research was that I come to SSMI, to New Delhi, and understand how the NGO, how the institution is working. I get to know the women. We use a lot of storytelling. We interview the women. We understand where they're coming from and their own history. We will then also look at like different textile industry related places in and around Delhi. So this was the first part where it was really about me learning about context, me learning about India, me like really learning what there is, so that it will be a meaningful collaboration. And in the second part of the project, which is a 6 weeks workshop, we would then get together again and create a small focus group of women at SSMI, and me trying to like really then incorporate the things that we learned from each other in the first research visit into the production. So each week of those 6 weeks has a different theme. So the first week is really getting to know each other and create a focus group. The second week was about the cultural exchange, where we look at maybe also European patterns and like European floral and environmental pattern and making, and compare it to India to see sometimes they're like overlaying aspects in like how flowers are displayed or like how women are incorporated in the production, but then women sometimes disappear from the presentation of what they are making, and it sometimes the women are not the focus anymore, even though they are the makers and they hold so much knowledge within communities, but they're somehow rather in the back. And that's also something I think we wanted to change, to say like, well, but there is not only male or female in a community, like women actually hold such a rich, sustainable knowledge within the production, within the making, within the community. And we need to make sure that this is being brought forward as well. And then in week 3, 4, and 5, it would be a lot of experimentation with materials, with patterns, where it's more of a free play, where it's like then also empowering the women to express themselves freely with like, and trying to alleviate some of the restraints from making, that it needs to be something very particular, where it's then rather supposed to be something very free that we then can shape again into something that SSMI can marketize. Yes, we of course have also planned like for Sunita and some team members of SSMI to come to the London Design Festival and like give a presentation at Goldsmiths, so that there's like a mutual exchange. I'm going to India and SSMI team members coming to London. But this is something we will now have to reevaluate, as we all said already in the beginning. It's not a challenging year ahead for international collaborations. So at the moment we are reviewing how we deliver our ambitious program and exchange in an online scenario. But we are all very hopeful, and I think we will make it. We will still create a fantastic project. So Nita, would you like to add, please?
Adding to Sandra, who's outlined the program completely. We have been working with women for the last 56 years now, because the founder was a strong believer of women empowerment when no one was really talking in terms of skilling and women empowerment. Our focus area, of course, are the urban slums. And we find not only there are two things that women have in the urban slums, and it really has to be an intensive study by very many people across the country. One is that they are, most of them do carry a skill with them. Second is that they are very keen to learn a new skill. That if you really, because they do want a livelihood, they do want to make their lives better. And urban slums, we need to work onto that. And that is the mission that SSMI is on, of bringing in women and giving them product training. So even if traditionally they do not know something, help them, train them up, and bring them to that level of skill which is acceptable by the market. So it is empowerment with a livelihood, and it should be a sustainable thing. So marketing, of course, is the most important aspect in this, where we are all the time looking out for opportunities. But this is what the mission of SSMI is.
Thank you so much, Sunita and Sandra, for sharing more about your project. And I just wanted to understand, where do you see this project going forward? And do you think that digitization, the increase in digitization during, especially during the pandemic and the lockdown, do you think that that would be an enabler in scaling such projects and making sure that the impact is amplified?
We are quite hopeful for it, because people now are looking at online frameworks. Teaching and understanding is also getting better. So we are in fact in the process of really looking with Sandra's help, because we went online with our school students. We have a school with 1,000 children, and we went online with them. So we've learned a lot in the past year. Sandra went online with her students in the university. So we are still, I think, another 2 or 3 weeks, we'll be quite clear on the way forward. And since we can't travel, we know that Sandra will not be able to come down. We are looking at opportunities of how swatches can be exchanged, how we can mail them across, where she can physically see things, and digitizing the whole process.
I think
And I think digitally also, sorry. Yes, Sandra.
Sorry, I just wanted to add something.
No, please.
I think what we are also trying to do is still keeping a physical aspect. So Sunita just mentioned that we are now looking, instead of me flying or Sunita flying, can we fly some of the objects? Can we fly some of the things that we are making, and then still have a physical exchange in some way? So we are trying to be very creative with what is going across the globe and how, because we still think that it's important that there is a physical exchange. I mean, it's a project for human beings, with us, with we all still need social interaction. It's not that we can replace it completely through a digital platform, and that we still need to be in contact with the outside world, with the environment, with the landscape. And that's also part of a social sustainability, that sort of mental health and the connection with the world stays there in a way. So we are really looking and combining both, but in a more innovative and explorative manner.
That sounds really exciting because it's almost like a hybrid model, and especially because it's such a hands-on experience. So having a digital enabler to kind of impart knowledge, but also having the physical aspect sounds really exciting, and we really look forward to what happens on ground. Sunita, at this point, can I ask you to request you to please introduce the artisans that have joined us today, and if we could engage them in a conversation about their experiences, their aspirations, and their hope from the industry in the future.
Sure. Santosh and Jyoti, can you unmute yourself? Unmute kar do apne aap ko. Santosh is a very interesting story, and that's why I brought her on. She is one of those people who did not know block printing. My ambition or dream was that can there be a lot of women block printers? We want to keep this craft alive. And in North India also, if you look where Rajasthan and Gujarat and all these places, you will find men doing the block printing. Very rarely will you find a woman doing. So one of the dreams was to really make women block printers. And Santosh came forward as one such person. And today, the master who's taught her, he's a well-known artisan, in fact, says that she is much, much better than what he is because her sense of color is very good. But I'll pass it on to Santosh and you to talk to each other. Jyoti is on the machine. She has a complete grip on the industrial machines. And we have a bag unit orders from Paris where we send bags, and she kind of leads the team forward. So over to Jyoti and Santosh and you to ask her some questions.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sunita. संतोष, मैं आपसे शुरू करूंगी. आप कब से जुड़े हुए हैं SSMI के साथ, और आपका लर्निंग, आपका जर्नी कैसा था, आपका एक्सपीरियंस कैसा था, और आपने क्या क्या सीखा यहाँ पे?
मुझे यहाँ पर जुड़े हुए 9 साल हो गए हैं. मैं जब आई थी तो फर्स्ट टाइम मैंने इधर ही ब्लॉक प्रिंटिंग देखा था, कभी मैंने देखा भी नहीं. तो मुझे बड़ा इंटरेस्टिंग लगा कि कुछ मतलब होता है, अपनी डिजाइनिंग देने का मौका मिलता है. तो जब मुझे आता भी नहीं था काम, तो मुझे सुनीता वसीम मैम ने सपोर्ट किया कि सीखो और करके देखो. फिर यहाँ हम प्रैक्टिस किया. उसके बाद बहुत मतलब अच्छा रहा यहाँ, और आज मेरा काम बहुत अच्छा है.
आपको आप क्या सीखना चाहते हो आप आगे
के लिए? मैम यहाँ ब्लॉक प्रिंटिंग में ये कि हमारी रोज एक नई डिजाइनिंग होती है. जैसे मैं कुछ भी बना रही हूँ ब्लॉक से, मेरे डिजाइन अगर 3-4 ब्लॉक से है तो उससे हम 7-8 तरह के अलग अलग डिजाइन. मुझे सबसे अच्छा डिजाइन करना मुझे बहुत पसंद है कि कुछ अलग उसी चीज से मैं कैसे उसको अलग डिजाइन कर सकती हूँ. तो मुझे ये चीज बहुत अच्छा लगती है.
And this is the artistic freedom that Sandra was also referring to, that not only learning the technique or learning how to do one particular type of design, but having the freedom to design the way that they could express themselves and take their technique a notch higher. So thank you so much, Santosh. And Jyoti, आपको जैसे आप मशीन का काम करते हैं, आप कब से जुड़े हुए हैं और आपने यहाँ पे क्या क्या सीखा, आप थोड़ा शेयर करेंगे?
मैं 4 साल हो गए मैम मुझे, और मैंने बैग जैसे पॉटली वगैरह काफी सारे बैग सीख चुकी हूँ मैं. तो वो अब तो मैं मतलब कुछ भी बना सकते हैं, मतलब कि ये चीज है हम लोग क्या अच्छा बना सकते हैं बस.
और आपको कैसा लगता है जब आप एक फिनिश्ड पूरा प्रोडक्ट स्टार्टिंग से एंड तक पूरा प्रोडक्ट बनाते हैं और फिर वो कहीं शिफ्ट होता है, कोई किसी और के लिए बनाते हैं, तो आपको वो कैसा महसूस होता है?
अच्छा लगता है. वो जो प्रेसिंग वगैरह सब फिनिश होके आता है ना, तो ऐसा लगता है कि हमने बनाया बैग. तो अच्छा लगता है, मतलब कि लगता नहीं कि हमने बनाया ये, मतलब एकदम फिनिशिंग बहुत अच्छी लगती है उसकी।
वेरी गुड। आई वुड लव टू, मतलब मुझे बहुत अच्छा लगेगा कि मैं आपके प्रोडक्ट्स देख सकूं, क्योंकि मुझे आपके हाव भाव से लग रहा है कि कितना कॉन्फिडेंस है और आपको कितना अच्छा लगता है, और ये सेंस ऑफ अकॉम्प्लिशमेंट बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है फॉर इंस्पायरिंग अदर विमेन। तो आपकी कम्युनिटी में जो और विमेन हैं, क्या वो आपसे प्रेरणा लेके ज्वाइन करना चाहते हैं, या फिर आपका सफर कैसा रहा इसको सीखने में और लोगों को प्रेरित करने में कि ज्वाइन करें?
अच्छा ही रहा अभी तक तो, बहुत अच्छा है, आगे भी मैं चाहती हूँ अच्छा ही निकले बस। मतलब कि सारी लेडीज बहुत अच्छा काम करती है हमारी यहाँ की, एकदम मतलब कि चीज अच्छा बनाती है बहुत, और थोड़ा बहुत तो बस होता है।
Thank you, Jyoti and Santosh. Sunita, we have a question from the audience. We have Lucy who has asked, why are men mostly block printers? Would you like to take this question?
I don't think there's any reason as such, because women, if we talk of weavers, we always say men. When we talk of block printers, we say men. Somehow women had been in the background, though they know the skill, though they know everything, they would be making colors, they may be making even the designs, but they have been behind the scenes, in India. Somehow with our parda system, our patriarchal system, a woman, even as a farmer, she does far more work, and we all know it. So somewhere, but in the South, interestingly, we do have women block printers. So there is a difference. It's not a universal, and India is very diverse. So it's interesting to see that the women, and in South, I also met women who would actually narrate the whole story in kalamkari or whatever they were doing. While in North, we just have basically the Mughal influence of flowers and leaves and inlay works, which came about as block printing arts. Our blocks are exactly what they would do on the walls, what the forts show you today when we visit any of these. So I think it was basically, I think, patriarchy and male-dominated society.
And do you see a shift now? Do you see that there is a difference in the last few years, or are there more interventions which are making this change from mostly men to more women joining in, not just for block printing, but for other forms of crafts as well?
No, definitely. I've been in urban metro towns. We do see a lot of women force who are stepping out. They have to be only, I think, they have to also see how clear we are with our instructions, how honest we are, because I think they do get a sense of when they feel that they are being cheated. So it's an interesting ride when you get into a urban slum and you meet groups of women. They will be doing something or the other, whether the work is coming through the middlemen or things. And everyone is doing something. Only the exploitation of it is rather a lot more than what we would like to accept and adjust. And that is something we should be all together fighting for.
That's true. Thank you, Sunita. I will bring in Pooja at this point to talk about her project, because that is also addressing a very vulnerable community and empowering them through design, art, and craft knowledge. Pooja, would please tell us about your project, how long you have been doing it, and the various, because you are touching on various aspects through the education and the work that you're doing with the vocational training unit at Alipur Women's Correctional Prison. So please take us through the project and what prompted you to work in this field and work with women.
Sure, thanks, Shruti. So the project, as you clearly mentioned, is rather about, so we've started the second vocational training unit. is about involving one of the most marginalized communities, which is the prison inmates. So, and it's not necessarily that all of these women are the ones who've been sentenced. There are also people who are under trial right now. So it's a mix of different women who might be under trial, who might be serving a sentence, but they're definitely like working from inside the correctional home. So the whole idea was to see if art and craft can be used both as channels of inclusive employment, also because they've been known to be very therapeutic, and it's a great way to use their creativity and give them some sort of avenue to utilize their time in a more productive manner. So a lot of these vocational training units have been running inside these correctional homes, but there weren't any younger lots or designers who were taking it up. Because it's very time consuming, and it's also you don't have the regular operations that you would see in a regular production house, because the communication is very stalled. There's a lot of legal processes, etc., which go through. So these are some of the challenges which come with training or taking up a project like this. The philosophy that we use there, they're treated as artisans in their own right after they're completely trained. So we pay them per product, per piece, and it goes out into the market, whether we sell it, not sell it. So that does not in any way touch upon the efforts that they've put in. So the first project that we did was 2017. And 2017 was, I think, in the summers we started it. And so we brought in one of the best trainers from Usha. So everybody knows, because of the history that they have with training tailors. So that, and we also had somebody from NIFT, one of the pattern masters from NIFT. And so we thought it was a good team and a good blend of somebody from the best institute and one of the best companies in the industry. And so these were the two people who came in, and we sort of designed like a semi-syllabus for the women. So we started with cutting and stitching and basic things, exactly the way students are taught in NIFT, but not in that depth. That's the depth is too much. Yeah. So this is how the syllabus was sort of designed. And we took about, I think, a good 6 to 8 months for them to even, get the hang of making a well-finished product. So they were working completely under the artisans that we gave them, until we were confident that they can produce and churn out products which are as good as the ones which we make in-house and can be, retailed from, say, a high-end store like a Pernia's. So that has been one of the achievements. We've been able to sell a lot of products that we've made inside in actual high-end retail stores pan-India, wherever we supply. So that's a brief summary of the project and the things we've done.
And there is also a focus on mental health and to help with confidence and overall empowerment of women. So why do you think that is important, or why is it a cause that you have aligned with this teaching of arts and design?
I think so. Humanities as a subject, it's not completely like the way science or maths is. There is a lot of the subjective or the more psychological aspect of a person which goes into, when you make a design or you're, indulging in any sort of art form. So when we were interacting with these women, we also saw that there was so much of a need to, talk to them about things that you generally don't need to talk to in a regular production house, right? So their moods were different from day to day, because ultimately they're inside, we're calling it a correctional home now, but now they've been serving a sentence. Somebody's there since 15 years and 20 years. They're walking in on a regular class, and they could be having like a really bad day. So the way we had to deal and conduct the program, we also understood that there were a lot of nuances that we were not equipped with in the beginning. So I think it was a very natural progression that we sort of understood that mental health has to go hand in hand with the project. So we started becoming more flexible with the timings, with the attendance, etc. And as and when we did that, we also saw that they became more, I wouldn't say passionate, but they opened up more to us, you know. There are a lot of tricky situations. They would want to talk to you about their personal lives because that's what happens. But those are things you need to stay out of because of legal formalities. But so we also started expanding the product range, like supposing digitally made or handcrafted postcards or, you know, illustrations were never a part of the product offering that we had. But because we saw that a lot of women, you know, who were not interested in, say, embroidery or stitching, were more interested in art. So we started opening up and we started investing in these smaller offerings, and we started doing a lot of cross-selling from the retail houses, which sort of was a win-win for us because we were getting like accessories which we had not earlier thought of, and they were getting like a avenue for creative freedom. So it worked well.
And do you have any plans of expanding this project to other cities, to other correctional homes, and scale up the impact?
Physical expansion, no. Especially since last year, you know, we don't even have access anymore to go inside because they really have to contain the spread of, you know, COVID inside, because even if one prisoner gets, it's impossible to then keep her quarantined. You know, it's a very, very tricky situation inside. So I don't think physical expansion as of now is anywhere on the cards. But what we're looking at is probably doing more of outsourcing them, like mini project, if that makes sense. But pan-India expansion is not on the cards right now.
And do you think that other fashion labels and other people from fashion industry can, maybe not with correctional homes, but why is it important for them to invest in craft skilling and a craft education?
I look at it from a very, very economic point of view. I mean, when you study designers, if you talk about contemporary designers today, like let's talk about one of the most commonly named, you know, say a Pero or an Eka. I mean, say Eka enjoys a turnover of say a 10 CR per annum, right? Like, which is great for like a ready-to-wear label. You don't have these kind of numbers in the Indian industry. And they retail, like a Pero retails from over 30 countries as far as I know. And the entire business is based on, it has been built on craft. That's the identity. Now, what craft is a secondary thing, but it is ideally Indian crafts that, you know, they're selling from the best high-end stores in Italy, Paris, and also the way Sunita said, you know, it's great to know that the artisans here have creative freedom, and, you know, that product is now being retailed somewhere in Paris. I mean, it's very heartwarming. So no, seriously, congratulations on that, because you don't get to hear something like that as often. Yeah, coming back to what you said, or even a Sabyasachi, if you have like a turnover of say a 250 CR, you know, like that's close to 35 million USD as far as I know. I know his product offering is like bridal, but ultimately it's craft, right? That's what they're channelizing. So I think we'd say that, you know, we're utilizing a lot of the potential in the Indian market, but I don't think we're offering the right kind of product into the Western market, because we need to slightly shift the focus from bridal and become a little more RTW, ready to wear, so that we can tap and squeeze out, you know, more potential. Like we need to have 10 more Ekas and 10 more Peros in the next, you know, 10 years. And we do have the manufacturing strength in India to achieve that. I think it's just that the marriage between business development and design in India is still not there. Like you still don't have, you know, like revenue houses investing in say designers to be able to scale up. So I think that's one of the key things. And craft education, the second point which you mentioned. So craft education, I think if you go to the university level, like the way we had when we were in NIFT, it was hands-on, but I don't think it wasn't as much in depth as I think we should have. It's either very theoretical, and you cannot learn craft in theory. Like, it is something you need to be like completely, it has to be hands-on. You have to learn it on the job. It's like that. So I think the shift needs to happen from theory to more practical. It's very tactile, you need to touch and feel and see the craft. So that's one of the main things. And I think we need to expand and offer more of these on-ground projects. Like NIFT used to offer, say, 1 or 2. That was also like 1 semester. But I think they should start offering complete courses based on craft as a specialized case. Somebody should be able to take it up as a specialization and not just like an add-on in their module. So I think these few things, if universities start to implement, because these kids, when they go in the industry, that is where the revenue can come from ultimately. So, yeah.
Thank you. And what's interesting is that, sometimes when we think about social initiatives or social impact, we're not aligning it to the core of the business, because we think that, it's something that is outside of the core business model. So what's interesting is that you have actually built a workable business model, which is investable, which can be scalable to other parts of the country. So why do you think, or how do you think that other designers and other fashion houses can align the core business for social impact? Because I remember your first line, you said it is from a very economic point of view. It makes economic sense to invest in women learning and skilling women. So how can that happen? And if you could give recommendations, because we have a few designers also who have joined us today, and there are a lot of students who are watching this live.
Okay. I wouldn't say it's absent. I know for a fact that, the marriage between the economics and like your ethos in every business is happening. We know we at FR have seen a lot of designers approach us, and they do have true stories to say. I just think it's very like, we're just taking baby steps, like supposing if somebody's been in business, say, for 3 or 5 or even 6, 7 years, it's the younger lot who is really taking up social impact or even sustainability. They've started thinking about it right now. So I think we're in a very, very initial stage, and these things take time, because a lot of times what happens is you start building a business model around it. For example, when we were in DOM, we first, the first year I thought, okay, I can do 100% organic cotton, I can do 100% herbal dye, and this. And then when you actually start making the product, you realize that, okay, this is nowhere accessible to the wider market. So things, and then you start tweaking, your ethos, and then you realize, okay, let me do some good, because I cannot, make 100% sustainable product, but you can do something which captures like one aspect of sustainability. So I think what the younger designers or businesses do is they try to take care of too many things sustainable in the first go. It's helpful to sort of, if you're passionate about water conservation, you could opt in for herbal dyeing. If you're passionate about wildlife, you could do something PETA approved. Depends. Vegan leather. There are so many options. So I think it's helpful to just be like really practical and pick up 1 or 2 causes that you want to align with, and then go fully into that. And I think it's really more about the depth rather than the, like the width of the things that you're trying to cover in the beginning, at least. And then you can keep adding as and when, when you're confident, okay, we've covered the first 2 things, let's see if, and the other thing I think there should be a shift is, when you say fashion, we always end up focusing just on how sustainable the product is. We forget about something like gender equity. That is a very, very worthy goal of sustainability, and it well. Like we've seen it as one of the goals under UN, as we've discussed many times, right? So there are so many other aspects which need not be completely evident in the product, but it's still very much sustainable. That's gender equity. There's also like policies around how you treat your labor, your artisans, what are the the avenues are great, and we should not just focus on just the product, not just the tangible aspect of fashion.
And we have a question for you. So is it feasible for designers to work with artisans from a distance? For example, if someone reached out to you to say that, can you get a collection created through the women who are associated with your initiative, is that possible through distance? Is it possible online?
In a way, yes. And in few ways, maybe. So it depends, because I think, first of all, I'm not sure if it is possible to directly work with, an artisan community, because that would need them to be really technologically advanced, which I know, like, internet is everywhere, but they need to be, well equipped with logistics, or even like a basic internet connection, especially in India, so that you can, talk face to face and develop. But there are a lot of things, like, you want to touch and feel a fabric, you want to touch and see a sample, like, there's fashion is very tangible, like, you know how it is. So it's definitely possible for us to develop something if somebody approaches us, but I think there are a lot of logistical costs involved in that. For example, we would always sample and courier it back for you to touch and feel and see if you really like it, and then send it back again. But I think that's how the whole world operates in any case, like the entire industry is being outsourced to India, Southeast Asia. So it's the same. There's nothing different. We operate in the same way.
Got it.
Yeah.
And I think I would ask probably the same question to Sunita and Sandra. Do you think that after going through this course and with the artisans, do you think it's possible for designers to reach out to you and co-create something and with the artisans, so to get the designers and the artisans involved, and maybe through the curriculum or maybe beyond the curriculum?
Sunita, do you want to?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, we can definitely, because we have been working with designers and buyers both. We have about 103 women who are working with us at the moment. We have already established production unit. On the side, we also have a very small training unit, in the sense we give them only product training. We pick out, or we look for women who already have some kind of a skill with textiles, whether it is even ironing, because a sample or a product has to be finished. So there's a chain, or there's a link program right from getting the raw material to the final product. And that's what I think Jyoti was trying to explain, that at times she also can't believe that this is the bag that she made on the machine, which finally looks what it looks, because once the finishing is done, obviously the product looks something else. So yes, it's a workable situation. And I think having faced this year, which has been challenging and kept going, because we didn't want to lose any of the women, and we didn't want to lose anything that would really not be able to support them financially, which was, I think, our topmost concern. And so it is a workable thing.
And it's okay. It's also possible to do it remotely, because, like, we don't know how the situation will unfold post-COVID. But if someone in another city wanted to reach out to you, it's absolutely possible to do.
Absolutely, yeah. I think
this
possible,
is also
but
something
Sandra can add in.
Yeah, I think, like, what we also discovered, that this is also possible across continents, as we see now. But I think what is, like, really, really important, that you have a good team communication, and that, like, both parties have the same value, like both teams sort of operate on an eye-to-eye level and on, like, mutual understanding of what the outcome should be and could be, and then you work together to make it work. So it's definitely possible, and there are processes how to do this, and there are tools how to do this. So, like, we also develop, like, in a very fluid way our work process. And then, yes, it's definitely possible, I think, even to do this across time zones and continents.
And Sandra, I want to start with you, and I want to ask, how does doing a project like this with women and empowering women through with these skills align with, you know, sustainable development goals of any country, or you know, the world, like UN Sustainable Development Goals, which Pooja has mentioned? So how does this align and meet those goals?
Those goals, like, so how they are portrayed or how they are written, they're really open, but like you need to then really look into the structure of your project. And a lot of it is that I think in previous centuries, even, let's say, that the women were not really seen or understood as knowledge holders, and as like they were just like, they were there, but they weren't seen as someone who can really contribute to the community and contribute to a livelihood of a family. And with the empowerment of women, with the training of the women, with like explaining, for instance, like even if it's simple things like we say in the workshops, we want you to experiment and to play, and therefore build up more confidence, and therefore have more self-empowerment and have more like trust in yourself into building your future. You give women a livelihood, and therefore you give women more opportunities in the future, and they will pass it on to the next generations of girls, of their boys, of like how both genders interact with each other, and therefore contribute not only to like maybe one development goal, but like actually they influence all, they all influence each other. So there's like some that are more about like healthcare, but like if both genders in a family or in a community really interact and see each other equally contributing to livelihood and contributing to the life, like it's also your the mental health and like your physical health. And then this is contributing to childcare and children's education, and this is contributing to their future, and this is contributing to an economic growth in an area. So they're all connected, and therefore it's like you can start with a tiny detail project and long over generations, you can see it has like a much wider impact on all the development goals.
Thank you, Sandra. That was really, really powerful. And we could actually feel how, you know, small acts of, you know, working towards social impact and working towards even one part of the goal can have like a ripple effect on so many other goals. And with that, because you designed the curriculum, and I open this question to the rest of the panel as well. Do you feel that it is different, or do you have to think differently when you engage with women as compared to when you are training men? Because you mentioned the other aspects of you know, mental health, confidence, maybe financial independence, and the understanding that that they can, you know, really achieve something and do something when most of them come from patriarchal backgrounds where, and they're told that they cannot, and you know, that they have a certain role in the society. So do you think that that also plays a role in the way you design the curriculum or the topics that you teach?
Personally, I think it shouldn't be a difference, but I think sometimes I also see it with some of my students. I need to I also saw it in myself sometimes as a student when my teachers just said, Sandra, you just need to believe in yourself and then you can do it. It's like really sometimes just someone believing in you, and then you start to believe in yourself. And like, I think this is something that I don't know why it is, but I think as female powers and female makers and contributors, artisans and people, like sometimes it's just believing in yourself and believing in the others. And I think it would be much better if we wouldn't have to do it, and if we wouldn't have to like tell each other to believe in ourselves, but sometimes to this is the tiny step that you just tell someone, I believe you can do this, and you just give them some trust, and that's it.
Understood. And what about like your experience, Sunita? Have you experienced any difference, or you know, do you have to do something different when you work with women?
Not really, but yes, one is really counseling the family members to let the women come out and learn something. Our biggest challenge initially, of course, now it has been years and years, and I think urban slums now are more tuned to a lot of courses and opportunities where women are stepping out. And I remember way back in 2000, we were running a small training center, and literally we had to go home to home talking to the husband or the father-in-law and mother-in-law, of just letting the woman come out for an hour. Though the class was going to be for 3 hours, we said just allow them. And you also come and sit. You also come join in, you know, because we are not going to start training overnight. We need them to come out of their homes. And we could see the fear rising in women as soon as the hour was kind of ticking by. But gradually things did change. The community starts to accept. And also, I think there's a huge need. It's not easy to survive in the metro towns now. It has become far too expensive. So that need, absolute need, that there is a second income or a single income. I mean, she may be a lone survivor. The husband may not be working. And we have seen this in this pandemic. It's been a real sad state of affairs. These 100 women, most of their husbands lost their jobs who were working in factories. So Delhi has, of course, had its ups and downs, but yes. And as far as the course curriculum or something, I don't think there's anything different. You really don't. I mean, if we can make a woman stand and do block printing for the same number of hours that the man is standing and doing, it's the craft that they pick up.
Understood. Thank you, Sunita. In fact, I would like to ask Santosh and Jyoti, आप mic unmute कर लीजिए. एंड मैं आपसे ये पूछना चाहती हूँ कि जैसे अभी मैम ने बात करी कि पहले जब लेडीज ज्वाइन करते थे या कुछ सीखने जाते थे तो शायद परिवार में थोड़ा सा ये होता था कि आप बाहर जा रहे हैं या कितने बजे तक बाहर रहेंगे, आप काम कर रहे हैं. क्या आपने कभी ये एक्सपीरियंस करा कि आपके परिवार वाले पहले सपोर्ट नहीं करते थे और अब करते हैं? क्या कोई चेंज आया है उनकी सोच में, विचारों में?
हाँ आया है मैम, थोड़ा सा तो आया है. शुरू में तो वैसे ही बोलते थे कि नहीं जाना है, कोई बात नहीं, जितना है उतने में ही सही है. लेकिन फिर हम लोग निकले, मैंने नहीं जाना चाहिए. फिर अब तो सपोर्ट करते हैं, अब तो बहुत अच्छा है, हर चीज में हेल्प भी करते हैं.
मुझे मैम शादी से पहले इधर हूँ तो कभी मम्मी पापा घर से रोका नहीं है. उसके बाद शादी के बाद मतलब हस्बैंड ने बोला कि क्या करेगी जाके, मगर फिर उसके बाद कि घर पे क्या करती हूँ पूरे दिन, कुछ नहीं. फिर उन्होंने हाँ कर दिया था. फिर उसके बाद हाँ करने के बाद मेरे बेबी होने के बाद भी थोड़ा ये था कि बेबी, इतना छोटा बेबी छोड़ के कहाँ जाना है, नहीं जाना, मना कर दिया था. लेकिन मैंने बोला कि मैं हैंडल कर लूंगी, मुझे संभालना है. लेकिन अब मुझे बहुत सपोर्ट है दोनों हस्बैंड के यहाँ से, मदर इन लॉ, फादर इन लॉ, सब काफी सपोर्ट करते हैं.
जैसे आपको जो पैसे मिलते हैं आप घर ले जाते हैं और आपके खुद के कमाए हुए पैसे हैं, उससे आपको क्या फीलिंग आती है कि आप जैसे घर के कामों में आप कंट्रीब्यूट कर पाते हैं, तो क्या फीलिंग आती है आपको?
मैम फील तो बहुत अच्छा होता है कि मतलब खुद की मेहनत का पैसा होता है तो, और घर में भी मतलब एक हस्बैंड की हम हेल्प कर रहे हैं साथ में, तो बहुत अच्छा लगता है.
ठीक है एकदम. मैं थोड़ा सपोर्ट हो जाता है, बस इतना ही, ज्यादा नहीं.
नहीं, बहुत अच्छी बात है कि आप ऐसा कर पा रहे हैं और आपको देख के आपके बच्चे भी और बाकी सारे जो लेडीज हैं आपकी कम्युनिटी में वो आपको देखेंगे तो वो भी ज्वाइन करेंगे. तो आप एक इंस्पिरेशन है सबके लिए, एक प्रेरणा है. तो बहुत अच्छा काम कर रहे हैं आप. थैंक यू सो मच. And I think the same question to Pooja, that Pooja, do you feel like when you work, because you're working with women, are there additional aspects of training that you need to look at when you work with them to support them and help them become better at not just the craft, but the overall confidence?
Well, so I think the group of women that I have interacted with is just, the inmates inside. So I don't have a very large subset to sort of compare them with, because very different from women who are outside, like Santosh and Jyoti, who were staying with families. So I would not be the right person to comment on that part. But yeah, I think with women, usually they do end up talking about, their domestic responsibilities, even from inside the correctional home. And there are a few women who are with kids, either they're newborns or then they are kids who are around, say, toddlers or something. So we do have to make enough room for them to be able to feel comfortable that, their child is around, or if they have to just get up and take care of the child from in between a class, and they should be feeling okay about it. They shouldn't feel uncomfortable doing that. So those are basic things, which again, I don't think we've ever had to do that with the men in our unit. So the dynamics are very different. Yeah, but we haven't trained a lot of women who are staying with families to be able to give you the right answer there. But I do agree with Sandra's point, wherein she said that women do, I think the term for what she was saying was the impostor syndrome, which a lot of women do have, and that completely is there. Also, I think because I think in a society, confidence as a quality has been always very masculine. It's just that, it's just how the conditioning has been. So I think that is where the imposter syndrome comes from. Somebody who's a woman who's very confident, I think we've trained her mentally to become very effeminate and, tone it down and be delicate and graceful. And somehow confidence does not go hand in hand with that. So I think it's just about giving newer tones to the word confidence. And it's not just about aggression. It can be very different. I think those are the more subjective qualities which I can comment on, because we've had an all-women's team, like my manager, the interns, everybody that we've worked with have usually been all women. So I think this issue has been something which I have also seen across different categories of women, whether they're the trainees, whether they're girls from proper colleges. That is an underlying common theme which is there in women in general.
Thanks, Pooja. Last question from my side to all of you is that what do you think is the one thing or one change that designers and people in the industry can do to encourage more women to join them and work for them, whether it's flexible hours or making sure that they're investing in childcare and giving them support in some other way? What is it that they can do to bring about more gender equity in the workplaces? Sunita, would you like to start?
Very interesting, because this asks for how do you want to really build their strength. If you have stepped out, then each aspect of the woman should be looked at, and you should have faith to take them forward on that. Risks are there. Irritants also will be there. You may feel at times that the woman is not really doing what she should be. But since this is a mission and we are talking of women empowerment, we are talking of crafts going forward, where they have a base knowledge of a lot of things, then I think we should also have an attitude of putting everything together in that and creating that atmosphere for them to move forward.
Sandra?
like, thank you, Sunita, for your answer. I think like while you were talking, I like also realized that I am from a much, much younger generation. I'm also from a different background and from a different continent. And like the things that I would like say now, or like the way I would answer, are probably because like I'm much younger and like from a different background. But like Sunita just said, like looking at all the aspects to make her feel comfortable. And there was like, yes, exactly, this is like exactly what is needed. So like if I talk from my perspective now in working in Europe, it is like providing childcare, like providing the possibility for the women to go back into work. So like in the UK, it's very different. Like the first 3 years, you need to pay for the childcare yourself before it's covered by the government. In Germany, it's very different again. And like each country has like different rules where like then the women are sort of taken out and have like a big gap in their career. But like this doesn't necessarily apply to like an Indian, South Asian or Southeast Asian context. This is like very specific to like my background. And in Europe, I also think it is about equal pay and equal opportunities. So sometimes it is also that like it's much harder for women to like move forward in their careers, because once you have children, then it's like seen as, oh, maybe the woman, like she needs to take care of this and this and this, maybe we rather employ a man, maybe like, oh, this woman is at this age now, she will have children soon, then we lose someone out of the workforce. There are like all those considerations, and I think like eliminating this and just like making sure that it's necessary a society has children. Like it's just part of life, so accept it. And like this is part of female life as well. This is also part of male life. Yeah, I think like, but this again is like talking from my perspective in being brought up and living in Europe.
Pooja?
I think, any wise person, a wise businessman or an entrepreneur, anybody who's running a company and hiring their employees or, craftsmen, anybody with the basic common sense of, understanding that how important, or they're basically like human assets, because again, would understand the value of creating an environment which is conducive for the women to work in, because you don't need to, have you don't need to be explained why they're very a very lucrative sect of the society to invest in, with all the subjective qualities that women as employees bring to a company, and especially to an industry like fashion and craft or design and art. I think it's very, very visible why we should create a framework, or where basic things like a maternity leave or like equal pay opportunities, these shouldn't be the perks anymore. I think there is going to be a time like, so sustainability is, I don't think it's a USP anymore, right? You expect fashion brands to operate in a certain way. So I think in the next 5 years, a decade or something, even in countries like India, it would be a new normal. It wouldn't be something which is going to get you brownie points. And I think society is moving gradually towards it. And I have a lot of faith in our generation, people who are going to ultimately be, creating the next set of companies working in the executive levels, because we do have the right understanding of what it means, to have the social impact very well integrated with the business. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm very optimistic about it. So yeah.
Thanks, Pooja.
Yeah.
So now I will just open the floor to to everyone who has joined us today. If you have any questions for the panel, for the artisans, please feel free to ask. You can, either raise your hand on Zoom, or you can unmute yourselves and use this opportunity to learn from people who are doing such amazing projects in women empowerment and craft education. Does anybody have any questions?
Yes, can I ask a question? I'll just switch on my video. Sorry,
Yes, Lucy, please.
just a second. Possibly, hi. Thank you everybody for really illuminating presentation. It's really interesting to hear. And thank you for answering my questions as I was going through. I have a question, it may be a bit controversial, but sort of with a background in the EDI, so equality, diversity and inclusion, we often try to ensure that different groups aren't separated. So we're two things I'd like to say. One of the comments, I think, relating to culture and background, I think being European, the thing that strikes me, I live here in Delhi, is how much pressure there is on women to conform to society and the responsibilities and accountabilities that they have there. That, I think in Europe, we don't have those issues. There are separate issues, but I don't have to get permission from a husband or a mother-in-law or somebody to go and do what I'd like to do. And I think that is a very, very interesting aspect of what you're trying to overcome. There's my second question, and I know this is probably, but as I say, very controversial, is that I notice in this space there is only women. And I think when we're talking about some of these issues, whether it's gender empowerment or disability or anything like that, isn't it important to have a mixed group of people, because otherwise that's how you help to broaden people's horizons. So as I say, I understand that's controversial. I know that we need to create safe spaces for people. I understand that too, but I just wondered what your thoughts might be on having more men involved in the subject.
Can I quickly say something? So I can only speak for the Crafting Futures project grants from the British Council. There are other projects and there are definitely men involved. It's not just that all the projects were run by women for women with women. There are projects where there are male entrepreneurs and professors, and where they collaborate with each other.
Okay, yes, as I understand that it was quite a controversial question, but I think there's a lot of benefits from that interaction.
Yes, totally, yeah.
Lucy, was the first question addressed to the Indian framework or the Asian community specifically? Can you go over your first question again?
My first question was really and sort of my overall impression of, I've been in South Asia for nearly 10 years now. I was in Sri Lanka for 8 years and now in India. So I work in the teaching centres in the British Council. So I'm very involved in training and education across the spectrum, whether it's business students or young learners. So it's that understanding that the extra pressure that women.
I think she froze.
I think that, So we'll just wait for Lucy to get back on and we'll go to the question. Are you back, Lucy? Yes, please go ahead. Your video had frozen.
Oh, okay. So as I said, my first point was really a comment, and I understand that it must be very challenging to overcome some of those.
It's a good observation, actually, and I noticed that in a lot of forums where we are discussing gender, that it seems to be dominated by women, and they are part of that conversation. But from my personal point of view, I feel like it's so important to just have those conversations. So even if it's majority of women taking that discussion forward, I think it's extremely important to just have that. So if we have to just take the torch and kind of go ahead, let's do it. And I'm sure that it will be a great example, and these conversations will start resonating with other people to join. And for people who are working on the field, like Sandra, Sunita, and Pooja, I think they're already working with a lot of men on the field. So it would be interesting if they were also part of this conversation. I agree.
I do have a point to add there. I think the only gap which is there is when a conversation or things get too idealistic, and and there's no way that you actually think it can be measured and implemented. I think men in general lose interest, and also quite rightly, because I think just idealistic discussions are not something which can bring any change. So I think any idealistic discussion should involve very, very concrete, actionable steps for us to actually bring in change. And I don't see an issue with that. Having said that, yes, even for our training program, in fact, the people who led it, the funding and the officers who were interested in doing that were in fact men. So that's very optimistic. And so there's a fine balance. I think maybe the people who speak about it are women in general. But I'm pretty sure that the teamwork, or at the ground level, there are men who are also contributing to the cause. And we just need to sort of put the cameras on them as well and give them more space to talk about it.
Yeah. Lucy, coming to your points, actually, in the community, it is through the men that we can really reach the women. It is not easy to reach women, because initially you have to kind of build their trust, and then they will let the woman come out for a training. And how
That's
then
what struck me.
yes, so we have every month, a regular meeting in the evening hours with the men of the community. Now gradually over the years it's become not so gender based that it is men or women, it is both together, because it's been steadily going forward. And also that I think now the students are more conscious. So we do feel and see that it is the young boy who will promote his mother to step out. It is the young boy who will say, my elder sister sitting at home, why can't she join your network? And it is this is how I think the society, that slightly the changes start coming and you feel more optimistic about what is happening. And all the projects in any case are not only women driven, men are equal parts of it. So be it textiles, be it food, you will always have a mixed gender there. So it's not something that
is done in isolation.
Yeah.
I think the other point, and I see it here in the panel, is having role models for women. So when you can see women living, these experiences and being the champions of certain things, or implementing things, or changing people's lives, empowering people, then that in itself is a very powerful message.
Absolutely.
So yes. Thank you for answering my question.
That is really, really important. I agree with you, Lucy. And do we have any more questions?
I have a question.
Yes, Bhavya.
So I was just wondering, and this is something I face, how can we make women realize their own power? Like, or what can we do to make women realize their own power? Because the female artisans I would deal with, when it comes to money, they would send their husbands to deal with me instead of taking the money themselves. And I try, and then it comes about how can we involve men in the conversation so that men also encourage women to become their own economic dealers instead of sending their husbands or sons to deal with it.
Have you noticed that, Sunita, in your dealings with women, have you noticed that, and have you been able to counter that in any way?
No, we actually give the salary in their hands, whether it's a check or the cash. And the interesting part is that at the year end, when we distribute bonus, we ask them, do they want an increment in their entire salary, or would they like a bonus? And they love the bonus because they say that is something we won't declare at home. That is our money. So, so besides the increment the husband is going to know, the mother-in-law will come to know, but the bonus they don't, and they prefer taking the bonus in cash, so so that they don't have to put it in the account. So there are interesting ways that you grow, and also because I think the interaction with the males of the family are so tied in together, maybe in our institution, the way we have worked, that neither the woman feels that it is the man's right to come and take, and also it won't be taken in the right spirit. In fact, we won't let the men come in to take the salary. So that's how it is. One thing that we definitely do to empower them completely, and maybe that's why we never have a problem with the women or the men workers, is we share with them the costing of each product. That if the buyer is insisting that the cost is going to be this much, say 10 rupees or whatever, then how is it really breaking up, and what would she really get if she's working on a piece rate? If they're on salary, there is no way, because there's a hybrid process in the institution of how we have developed, because some women just come for 3 hours and do very small jobs like thread cutting. Now, in the textile industry, that's a very, very important aspect, because that's the part one of the quality check once it's off the machine. And that's the time they notice of how well the stitching of the machine has been. So obviously these women, they come in for 2 hours or 3 hours or take a bulk home. And so necessarily we have to explain to all the women and the men that this is what the buyer is. And I think that transparency is the trust that we build on. Because once they understand, they are ready to work for lesser because they know that the buyer is giving us lesser. So these are the different challenges that we float on and teach them or learn with them. We all learn. I wasn't really a textile production person, but I learned it with them. And that's what I think the journey has been like.
Thank you, Sunita. I think that's a really interesting point, and obviously like a much larger conversation on why transparency is so important, not just to build trust with employees, but also for your consumers to know what's happening behind the scenes. Are the workers being paid well, and are they making sustainable livelihoods through the work that they are doing for any brand or any designer house? So, and Bhavya, I hope that answers your question. And you need to kind of put the salary on their hands and make that as a rule.
I do that in any case, but they wouldn't, some of them wouldn't take it. And like, how do you then make them realize that this is their earning and not their husband's earning?
Just hold it back. I'm telling you, just hold it back till they take it themselves. That's it. They must sign and they must take it. That's the least.
Maybe they come together, so not just one person. So the starting could be, because sometimes I think people are also scared to carry money home, like with, that, something might happen, they might drop it, or someone might take it from force. So of course there could be multiple reasons why they're not handling money themselves, and maybe starting with people, like asking their, whether it's the son or the father or the husband to accompany and say, but I'm going to give it in your hands, it's your money. But if you just need that, to just carry and safely to the bank or to home, to just do that. So I think maybe that can be like the micro start that can build confidence ahead.
Shruti, I was just wondering, sorry, coming in here.
Yes.
This particular question, because it is a really important one. I was just wondering, it would be interesting to also hear from Jyoti and Santosh on this. Maybe just not, they may not want to share their own experience, but maybe, experiences that they know of, from some of their other artisans who, women artisans who feel or have had experiences in this way. I just think it would be interesting to hear from their perspective as well on this particular subject.
Do you?
I think they have just left.
Oh,
because
gosh.
It's way off their time. They pack up at 5:30.
Oh,
and
gosh.
it's that. So I'm sorry, Roshni.
No worries, Sunita. I should have actually asked.
Yeah, I
because
think that's why I just see that, and I've dropped a message, but I think they have.
No, that's completely fine. I just think some of these questions have been really good, including Lucy's question as well. And I'm so happy to have Lucy join in here also from the British Council. It's really important because having even these good observations are really, really, really helpful for us in the future as well to sort of think about.
I'll just add here that thank you. I'm here because for my personal interest, I think it's a fascinating area of work that we do at the British Council. As I say, I'm in a different department with different focus, but it's been absolutely fascinating to learn more about what's happening. But the other reason is that we're looking to develop a summer camp for children, and I'm working with our arts team, so with Jonathan, to think about how we can incorporate the content, so the work that you're doing, to teach children about what is, some of the projects that we're doing in the art sector, and to use that as content for learning outcomes and working towards sustainable goals. So that's one of the things that we're exploring at the moment. It hasn't been finalized yet or fully agreed. We just need to check on intellectual property and all of those things. But what I'd like to do is to teach, to use some of the concepts and projects that you're working on to help young learners from 6 to 18, to understand and to use this for learning language as well as skills, as well as helping them to understand the fantastic culture that exists in India in its crafts and arts, and how much we can learn about not only heritage and craft and sustainability. And there's so many themes, right? So it's so rich. Women empowerment, inclusivity for all. So that's what I'm also exploring that as well. So no, it's been absolutely brilliant to be here and to learn more about your work. And on a personal level, want to get much more involved in craft and understanding. I'm a historian by background, and I love how craft is basically living heritage and tells so many stories. So thank you.
Thanks.
We would love.
It's amazing to have you here and to learn about what else is in store, and how everyone can co-create and help out in furthering this education, craft skilling, and also to mainstream it. So not just for artisans, but for everyone to learn more about craft, its importance, the heritage, and how to engage with artisans. I think it's extremely important, and we're so happy that you could join us today and be part of this conversation. So I think we have also, reached the end of the session because it's already 6:30. So if there are no more questions, I would like to close this session and thank everybody who has joined us today.
Thank you.
Alia?
Thank you to the panel.
Thank you everyone.
We're done with the questions, and I'd like to thank everyone. Thank you so much to all our guests, and thank you so much to British Council, and thank you so much to our audience for staying engaged with us. And we look forward to having many more conversations and building on these discussions. We love collaborating, we love challenging the status quo, we love making things happen. So please hit up, knock on our door if you need any of those things done. Thanks, everyone. Take care, and we'll see you all soon.